Hello everybody, welcome to Obscurities and Miniatures. Today we've got a box of Dwarf Infantry from Northstar and Osprey for their Oathmark game. So originally I was a bit hesitant. I thought, these guys would be kind of dull and boring. They have a very Tolkien-esque look to them, for lack of a better term. I've always been a fan of the over ridiculous proportions of the GW dwarfs with their giant heads, humongous beards, and non-existent feet and big hands. So this is a bit of a departure for me. But the cool thing is, and I gotta give Northstar and Osprey credit for this, is that for what you get in a box, you really do get a lot of bang for your buck. You do have 30 models in here. They aren't the most complex of build jobs. You can see it's just a main body, kind of in line with a lot of the historical kits. Your weapon hand and an offhand shield and head. So upon opening it, we've got a bunch of frames. Grab one and get that zoomed in for you guys there. So all of the frames are going to be identical. And this is kind of an interesting one because this is something you don't see very often anymore with dwarves. Look at this. Bows, arrows, and spears. When was the last time you saw that? I know Mantic made a shield, spear, bulwark unit, but that's about the last one that I can really remember going on. You'll also notice that you have enough weapons to kit out everybody on the sprue. You have 5 models on a sprue, and that's 6 frames, I guess. So you really could do the entire box, all as archers, all as lancers, all as close combat, whatever you want to be. And then you also do have an additional section on every frame to make a command unit. So you've got an offhand hammer to go with your standard, obviously there's no flag there, your champion's axe, a helmet for him, I'm not sure what this piece is, and a random extra bow. So I thought there was a horn somewhere. Maybe I'm imagining things. Maybe that's what this is. I don't know. I'm rambling to myself. So my first thought is, and we should also point out that there is a nice, very large complement of nicely done heads. So they're very traditional looking dwarves. The bodies themselves are pretty generic as well, for lack of a better term. I mean, it wouldn't look out of place in any kind of a Dark Age Saga warband for what you've got here, other than the fact that the legs are a little bit shorter. But if you've ever seen some of the older plastics out there for Dark Age stuff, then they might actually blend in perfectly. Yeah. So, and then you do have your hands here for the shields. All the shields are the same, and then you have your offhand for shooting the bows and arrows. So a nice complement of options available for you to kit out your units. And you got 30 of them, and if I remember correctly, units in Oathmark max out at 20 models. So it's in groups of 10, so 10, 10, and 10. You could do one of each, and you have yourself a nice little solid core of a skirmish band. But then again, that's also a great amount of models. 30 guys is enough to do Dragon Rampant or just about any other Frostgrave. And speaking of Frostgrave, my first thought is, I wonder how well these will convert up with Frostgrave parts. So we're going to go get some of these guys put together, and I'll see about just converting some throw some Frostgrave bits on there just to see what happens, and we'll show you the results in just a sec. So you can see here we've started off with some of the basic infantry, and again, I really dig the fact that this kit gives me every option right on one sprue, enough for everybody. I'm not mixing and matching. I don't have a bunch of extra bits left over or anything like that. I've got exactly enough to build what I want and need. So I started with some basic infantry units. They all have the same shields, so there's nothing fancy or flashy there. And like I said before, they have a very simple Tolkien-esque look to them, which isn't a bad thing. I still think this guy's got a little bit big of a head. Reminds me of Hoggle from Labyrinth. I'm just going to keep thinking that the whole time I have them on the table. So these were just built straight out of the box as is. I like his little pose with the axe leaning against his shoulder. And then I tried a couple other things. So I will show you. Here is one of their examples of a Lancer, Spearmen. Grab a couple of archers. It's weird having bows and arrows for dwarves, but you know, I just rolled with it. And again, I really do dig the fact that we've got lots of different head options And then I tried building one of the command units. That's what this weird doggy thing was for. It's the back of his helmet. And you'll notice his shield's a little different. That's actually because that shield comes from the heavy Dwarf Infantry box. And we'll talk about that another day, but that, if you're curious, is completely compatible with this one as well. So if you really want to get a bunch of unique looking guys, you absolutely can do it that way. And just in case you're curious, I do have a Oathmark human, just to give you a good size indication. And they are pretty similar. You can see here, the dwarves have that bit of a thicker body, lower center of gravity, bigger heads, especially compared to the humans. And you can tell, from a glance, it's pretty obvious which is the dwarves and which are humans, especially with the beards. And then I decided, let's see what happens if I start mixing and matching stuff. So this is a hero model. This is a heavy infantry helmet. And the heavy infantry are kind of cool because, and I'll show you, and I'll get there eventually, but they have completely enclosed face masks and open beardy face masks as well. And then I think that the mace he's got came from a Iron Golem from Warcry. I could be wrong. I know that's a Vampire Count shield. And I think that's a Frostgrave Barbarian Axe. So he's a little bit of a hodgepodge. I did start playing around with modifying them. They don't fit the human bodies all that great. They fit, but not great. I think with a little bit of green stuff and putty in there, you're not even a dwarf. Get out of here. They will work. So I'm sure you're curious, how do they stack up with the other dwarf models out there? Well, my first thought was Mantic Dwarves. And you know what? I think they would just about work perfectly. Now, obviously, the parts might not be completely compatible, but if you're going to fill in your ranks with a Kings of War army, for example, I think that's going to work pretty well. Grabbing a Frostgrave model. Thought I had one here somewhere. I do. I think if you wanted to use them as Frostgrave soldiers, they would work pretty well. That wasn't the one I wanted to use, even. Where are you, dude? There's like a lot of models laying around in front of me here. My first thought was, in case you're curious about their rivals, obviously that's a GW. There's the Frostgrave guy I wanted to have. So they're still obviously very dwarf-like. Let's see, grabbing a GW dwarf. You're definitely going to see, I guess if you have a bigger base, instead of these. He's a little too tall. Let's see other dwarves I have handy. A Durgan Paint Forge. Makes some nice ones. A little bit thicker. Conquests. Dweghom obviously are going to dwarf, bad pun intended, the competition. Privateers and some of the more modern GW stuff are also, I think, going to have some pretty big size issues there. So I wouldn't probably mix them in. I think the safest bet is with either the Frostgrave models or with the Mantic Dwarfs. I think you're going to get a lot of use out of them there. And I did actually slap some paint on one just to give you guys a quick and dirty idea. Very much like a garden gnome. A very simple paint job, but it gets the job done. And I gotta say, I kind of like it, which is weird because I thought, oh, these guys are so plain and boring. But, I think it kind of works for them. That almost like generic, and I don't want to say that in a bad way, but a very universal would be a better word maybe, style versus, the super hyper specific style that like GW has going on these days, I think. Or, like a very unique identity like some of the stuff from Privateer versus, I think this is just a very traditional fantasy style sculpt. And, here we go. I did try playing around with some Frostgrave bits with a dwarf. So they do work. But anyway, yeah. So, In conclusion, I'd say a lot of bang for your buck if you play at a smaller scale, and I mean, or if you just want really diminutive dwarves, or you like that traditional style rather than the flash and glitz of modern day skirmish game aesthetics. I think this isn't a bad set. It really isn't. And I mean, like I showed you, that's not even a dwarf. Why do you keep... You get a lot of variety in terms of both gear options, heads, weapons, and if you mix it in with the stuff from the heavy infantry kit, which we'll show you another day, I think you got a lot of options there, not only for modeling, but for, you know, wargaming as well. So definitely a cool set, and I really do look forward to seeing what else Northstar puts out with the Oathmark line. Definitely some cool models. So, with that said, this is High Lord Tamberlane with Obscurities and Miniatures. And thanks for watching. We'll see you back here soon. Bye-bye.